call a regular scheduled council meeting of January 20th, 2026 to order. There are no public hearings scheduled for this evening. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda from administration?
Administration has no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Thank you. Anything from council? Not seeing anything, I'll ask for a motion to accept the agenda as circulated.
I'll make that, Your Worship.
Councillor Butcher, thank you. Discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that's carried. We don't have any public input this evening, but we do have a delegation from Seniors Transportation. And, oh, no, council has you outnumbered. We're okay. I'm not sure who wants to talk. Jeannie, are you going to start the process?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for allowing us to present the transportation issues here in Redwater. I'll just introduce everyone. On the late one is Herman Lawrence, a volunteer driver for Drive Happiness. Second is Lorraine Belland, and she's with the Seniors Bus Transportation for about 15 or 100 years, right? Yeah. And your position is on the executive?
Secretary, treasurer, bookkeeping, booking buses.
Yeah, everything.
Everything.
For 15 years. And next is Gail Zystra, and she's the main driver for Seniors Transportation, and you've been on it for?
Just about 14 years.
14 years. And this is Bev Ireland. She's from Egremont, and she's a volunteer driver for Drive Happiness. And next is Alex Serink. She's from Drive Happiness also, and she's from the city, but I think she has relatives out here. And I'm Jeannie Hare, for those that don't know me, and I'm a volunteer driver for Drive Happiness for about 18 months, and for the Seniors Bus about 10 years. So I'd just like to start by saying about the issues in small towns, and I'm sure you know them with transportation. Aging, long distances, healthcare, mobility issues, lack of services supporting seniors, no public transit, loss of the Greyhound a few years ago, and reduced government, you'll know about this one, reduced government funding to municipalities. So I'll start with Drive Happiness. They started in 1998 in Edmonton. They're nonprofit. 70% comes from grant money, 5% donations, and 25% revenue from the annual fees and the tickets that the customers purchase. You have to be 65 or over to use it. The volunteers have to have Class 5 license only, and they drive their own car. And they have to have a clean driving abstract, no criminal record, and there's no minimum hours, like you can, it's self-scheduling, so you can go one time or 20 times, it's up to you. And they get gas and reimbursement, that's all. There's 9 clients in Redwater and 6 clients from Gibbons and Bonaccord that are using it currently. There's 4 volunteer drivers this year, and we did 87 rides in 2025 for Redwater. For the seniors transportation, and these are 2025 stats, because there was no trips for 6 weeks. The bus got vandalized and it was out of service for 6 weeks. So these are counting the stats without it for 6 weeks. How many trips? 55 paid trips, 10 free trips. Where did we go? Shopping, 9 trips. Casino, 10 trips. Long-term care residence, 4 trips. Floor curlers, 4 trips. Red Hatters, 2 trips. There were 17 hospital appointments. The Diamond Spring Lodge, the first floor, used 7 trips for shopping and entertainment in other communities. And the DSL4, the upstairs of the lodge, did 5 trips for shopping and entertainment. There was 4 trips to court. The town, the mayor, and the councillors used it once. We used it for the seniors conference, and it was in the Edmonton Garage once for recall. And before I go into what we want from you or what we need you to know, I'll ask Alex Serink from Drive Happiness to present her more stats.
Well, thanks, Jeannie, for inviting me to be here this evening, and thank you, everyone, for listening and having me. So I'm one of the program coordinators at Drive Happiness. I've been at the organization since November of 2024. We're, like Jeannie said, a nonprofit organization that helps seniors stay mobile and independent by offering safe, affordable, non-emergency transportation. And we're really proud to have served roughly 75 communities in Alberta to date. Like Jeannie mentioned, we started in Edmonton, but we're volunteer-based. So wherever we can find folks who want to volunteer and like driving, then we are able to accept clients in those communities. So riders sign up as members. The tickets are $12 each. That gets you 40 kilometers or 90 minutes of travel time, whichever of those would come first. So a trip from Redwater into Edmonton and then returning, that oftentimes is roughly 4 tickets, $48. But compared to, say, a taxi cab, a lot of folks say that it's a fraction of other options, the price of other options, sorry. Because all our drivers are volunteers, we cannot guarantee that every single ride request of our clients is filled. But obviously, the more volunteer manpower, woman power that you have, theoretically, the more rides that are being taken, the less burnout amongst the drivers. Yeah. So thanks to our volunteer-based model and support from partner organizations and municipalities, we were able to assist over 850 seniors last year with their ongoing transportation needs, and probably roughly 50 others with one-time trips. We have about 100 volunteers, including the 4 in Redwater, in Edmonton and surrounding areas. So I have seen a volunteer from Northeast Edmonton drive into Gibbons, pick up a client, drive back into Edmonton, take them to their medical appointment, and then return them home after. Volunteers aren't, it's based on their own availability and comfortability, but a lot of times we see folks not shy to travel a little farther to pick up a client that they know is in need. Our riders often tell us how much they value having that flexibility, personalized service they can rely on. The relationships they form between themselves and the volunteers is just so much different and priceless in my opinion. And it proves how important community connection is for aging in place. And again, most of those rides were into larger centers such as Edmonton, Fort Saskatchewan, St. Albert, for medical purposes mostly, sometimes personal things, errands, groceries, banking, that kind of thing. We don't limit our rides to medical purposes. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay. And I just want to mention that for retention of residents in Redwater, 2 of the customers, as we speak, are intending to move exactly for that reason, lack of transportation in Redwater. And I just want to go over what we would like from council. For Drive Happiness, you'll be glad to know that we don't need money. And we could use more drivers. We have 4, but we could use more. And anything to do with education of Redwater or sort of exposure or education of the transportation offered, like in the paper or advertising or anything, would be appreciated. But with the seniors bus, we need more drivers also, but we have a skeletal executive. There's 4 or 5 on the executive, and they've done it many years and they're getting burnt out. And I heard that before it was taken over in 2010, the town had management of it before the current. They managed it before the current ones took over, and we were wondering if that possibility could happen again, or at least if you could help with it. And anybody, feel free to chime in about anything concerns you have.
One thing that impressed me with Drive Happiness was the insurance. There's a $5 million policy on every ride over and above what we have on our own cars. And that's for the customer and the driver. So if we're in an accident, we're well covered. And that really impressed me.
And the cost, I did initially compare taxi rides and different transport to Edmonton and stuff. And they cost the customer $10 a ticket, or now it's $12, I guess, for 40 kilometers. So it's a really lower price than any other mode.
Can I ask a question? So if you take a client from here to Edmonton for a medical appointment, and there's the wait time, do the seniors pay for that wait time as well?
That's
So,
volunteer.
so yeah, so they're paying for the pickup to drop off, the transportation time. And like Jeannie mentioned, you know, our volunteers are signing up for the rides that make sense for them. So sometimes that might mean a volunteer from Redwater gets someone into Edmonton, and then they want to go do their own groceries and shopping and that kind of thing. Maybe that same person can come back for the completion time of the appointment. Maybe it's a different volunteer that is from Edmonton or another community that signs up to return them. Or maybe they don't have a sign up at all, but at least we were able to help provide them with some affordable transportation for part of that ride. I will say, from communities like Redwater, Smoky Lake, Fort Saskatchewan, where you know it's a farther distance and they're expected that I'm kind of going to be stranded if no one takes me home, it is most oftentimes that same volunteer that does do both parts of the ride. But they're not paying for the wait time.
I'm just going to jump to my resource space and find out if either former Mayor Butcher, former Mayor Smith know of what happened way back when.
No, I don't. Excuse me. I don't know. I know that you're right. We used to look after it, and then all of a sudden we didn't. And that's
I know.
Before my time.
I know what happened. There was, with the last Secretary Treasurer, a misunderstanding with administration. It would have been very easy to have fixed up if administration would have looked at the operating certificate. And then there would have been no more discussion, because the operating certificate said exactly what the bus was to be used for.
Okay. So some sort of a discussion caused change in operating process.
Town didn't want the bus anymore.
Okay, that's fair.
And now, we're at the same point where I know what the operating certificate says, but that's not my point. It's just that we don't have drivers, we don't have executive coming up for our new annual meeting.
And election.
And we also need a casino help. Casino chairperson, yeah.
Casino help usually isn't a difficult scenario. We can usually get.
It is for Gail. She
I'm just saying, from the council perspective, we usually have at least 4 or 5 volunteers from council who are willing to jump in for a casino. But you are correct, the organization and operation of that is,
And same with the organization for the casino.
Yeah.
Gail lives out of town. Every time she comes into town to sign somebody up. It's a volunteer on her part. And she's finding it difficult. Her husband's retiring, and
Volunteers are needed.
anything from council? Go ahead, Councillor Smith.
The question, so are you saying that Drive Happiness can replace the bus?
no,
Well,
because
they're different functions, like, because
The
the
bus-
bus is needed for people in wheelchairs and groups.
Okay.
That's your 15 minutes.
because the bus is only for, it's also handicap. Drive Happiness isn't.
Another question. So you're saying you don't have to purchase extra insurance? It's covered under,
Happiness covers it, plus I have my own insurance, which is 2 million.
Most insurance states that if you are driving within 16,000 kilometers at a volunteer basis in a year, that your normal, what is it, 2 mil is the normal insurance policy, that is good. So, yeah, not, I would say, a very small percentage of our volunteers are reaching that 16,000 kilometers.
Seniors bus is fairly new. Is that correct? It was,
2 years? 2019, we got it in 2020.
yeah. Because the old one was, or the one it replaced was significantly
Exactly.
used.
It was 10 years old and less than 100,000 kilometers, if I remember right. We sold it to Gibbons.
Okay.
back a good deal.
So basically, what we're hearing is you're looking for some assistance for drivers in advertising for the Drive Happiness. Anything we can do that promotes that program for our regular citizens that aren't looking for assisted transportation. And then you're looking at a solution for the seniors bus, which would include assisted transportation. Anything else from council?
It's a sorry, class four? Class four
Class 4
driver's
for the
license?
bus.
Anything on the negative side you want to tell me about this that you don't want to tell us? Is this,
I just think we're pretty lucky. There's a handout with all the communities that they've been involved in over Alberta, and Smoky Lake is one of them that we're well known to us. And a former employee of the town with community services, if it wasn't for her support to get it going, it probably wouldn't be here. And I think we're pretty lucky, and I hope it's here when I need it.
we'll take this back into administration. We'll converse. You're fairly short on time for the seniors bus. Is that correct? Your AGM is
February 2nd.
February. Yeah. So we won't have an answer by then, but we will discuss it and we will get back. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for taking your time to come and talk to us. There's a perception out there that you can't come and talk to council, and that's not true. Sometimes it's easier to talk to us individually at the coffee shop, but there's always presentations. We're more than happy to hear.
Well, the good part is we get to watch the hockey game, you don't.
It doesn't start till 8, Jeannie, we hope.
Nice meeting you all.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks very much for all you do, Alexis. That's great to see our youth involved in the transportation. Seniors, that's good.
Yeah, sorry, I'll get it.
my dad is Terry. Yeah.
Harry.
Across the river.
Yeah. So he's from Berderheim. I live in Fort Saskatchewan.
Grandpa Bill.
Yeah. Wonderful. I knew I'd see some. Okay, take care, everyone.
Good night.
Right.
And I believe our next order of business is we're looking for Benji.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. We're in your hands, sir. Happy New Year.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. As you know, my name is Benji Wasser. I'm a partner at MNP, one of the people on the audit team for the town of Redwater. My plan today is to go through what we call our audit service plan, and then I guess if time permits, do a little in-camera on our standard discussion around fraud and error. There's only me. I don't have 6 people in this delegation, so maybe it'll go a little quicker. I can see everybody, I think, so I'll just kind of go through the different pages, and then everybody, if you've got questions, you don't have to wait till the end. You can just kind of stop me at any point. I don't know if you've got a copy of the document that I'm going through in front of you.
We do, Benji.
Okay, great. So with that, we'll just get going here on page 1, which is just a couple pages in past the table of contents. At the top, it says MNP's client service commitment. So on that page, there's a section called topics for discussion. So basically, what am I here to do today? What is the audit service plan? And this is just a required part of the audit where we discuss with council kind of what we're going to be doing, what are the risk areas, anything new and exciting at the town from an audit perspective. And then it gives you the opportunity to let me know of anything that might be of interest from an audit perspective, or if you have anything specific that you want us to look at or focus on during the audit. So again, pretty standard audit service plan topics. Page 2 is the key changes and developments. So this is where we would outline anything that we wanted to bring to your attention, whether it's from a town-specific perspective, or if there's any new, public sector accounting standards that are coming down in the future that we want to kind of get you ready for. You probably remember us talking a lot about that asset retirement obligation thing that was new a couple of years ago. So that was kind of an example of a big ticket change. You'll see there is one item on here under the new reporting developments. It's financial statement presentation, section PS 1202. So that's public sector standard 1202. We want to bring this to your attention just because it's going to make your financial statements look differently. It doesn't mean that there's any actual changes to the numbers themselves, but the numbers are going to be rearranged on the financial statements. So if anybody's familiar with corporate style financial statements, they kind of follow a certain format. You've got assets at the top, liabilities below, and then kind of retained earnings at the bottom. With public sector, with your financial statements in any municipality, it looks a little different currently, where you've got financial assets at the top, liabilities in the middle, and then non-financial assets underneath that. So it kind of splits up the assets into 2 categories. Public sector is saying, well, we're going to kind of go back to the old way of doing things again and go back to those corporate style financials where you have all the assets listed together. So as you can see, it's just a reordering of where those numbers are going to slot in on the financial statements, and mostly on your statement of financial position or balance sheet in a company. That's what that's called. So like I said, it's not going to be a major change from an internal perspective from your finance team. Accounting is the same, just the financial statements will look a little different, and that is coming into place in 2027. So we've got this year where it's going to look kind of like what you're used to. 2026, next year, it's going to be similar again, but then in 2027, you'll see what that new financial statement looks like. So that's coming. Next page is the risk assessment. So this is just kind of looking at some of the significant risk areas that we focus on. The first one is typical in any organization. The biggest risk in any organization is usually around management override of internal controls. So, if there's something that management wants to make look better, they can just post a journal entry if you want revenue higher, you post a journal entry to make revenue higher, but it doesn't really have an underlying item that is creating that revenue. It's just kind of made up. So that's the kind of thing we look for. We look at journal entries, We look at significant estimates and significant transactions. So anything that kind of looks out of the ordinary, that's outside of the normal processes, are the things that we kind of focus on. Now, the other thing on here is the disclosure of salaries and benefits, and that's just around the disclosures in the financials where some of your names show up in those financial statements with remuneration attached. So we want to make sure that those are all accurate. Next page is our dates, so the key milestones. Obviously today, the 20th, here to do the audit service plan. The key dates here to note would be the field work procedure, so that's when we get going on the actual physical audit work, which is kind of the tail end of February. So that 23rd to 27th week is kind of the bulk of the audit happening. Obviously more happens after that, but that's the key week to do the bulk of the work. And then back in front of council on the 21st to do the final audit findings presentation and financial statement presentation as well. And that's obviously prior to the May 1st deadline that Municipal Affairs has to submit the final audit. Page 5, the audit materiality. This one I always like to touch on because it sometimes can raise some questions. So the materiality that we're kind of planning at this point is $390,000, which is what was used last year. And just to make everyone aware again, or remind everybody that materiality doesn't mean that if we find, a $200,000 error, we just move on and leave it alone because it's immaterial, because obviously that's an important number for council and for the town. So what would happen in that situation is we still look at things under that balance, but if there is, say, a $200,000 item and for whatever reason management doesn't want to adjust that error that we're suggesting, we would bring it to your attention on that. I think you've seen it before, but our schedule of unadjusted differences. So we kind of accumulate all those things that are technically under the materiality, but we want to bring to your attention. So that number is high, and it's basically based on your revenue. So as your revenue grows, that number grows as well. And it's typically just used for statistical sampling. So that number drives how many samples we do. We do look at many things under that balance. And also the last thing to note is there's no materiality on fraud. So, if we find $10,000 that's fraudulently taken or misstated, then we would obviously bring that to your attention as well. Next page is the team. Pretty much similar team. We've got myself as the engagement partner. We've got Aisha, who's the senior, who's been there before. Matt Hardy is actually new this year, but was on your town Redwater audit a couple of years ago. And then Mark is the new guy. So the one person you might remember seeing in front of you at some points would have been Tanner. He would have presented to you guys in certain circumstances. He's not on the audit anymore. He just became a partner this year. So having two partners on any given audit from an engagement perspective is usually not the best approach. So he slid off and kind of has his own clients. So you won't be seeing much of Tanner anymore unless, something could happen and maybe he's going to present for me or something. But for the most part, Tanner is not going to be working with the town. Page 7 is our fees. We did a recent fee quote, which was accepted, so that's sitting at the $40,000, pretty similar to last year. And then page 8, we start getting into the appendices, just kind of some details about the audit itself. The first page I'm just going to skip over. That gives a little bit more information on that new public sector standard, 1202, which just restates how that statement of financial position looks. Has a bit more information, but I explained all that already. Page 10, Appendix B. So this is again just reiterating the fact that we look at the risk areas. So if we notice risk in a certain area, we spend more time there versus the unrisky side or the unrisky areas. And then the procedures, obviously we look at the numbers on the financial statements, but we do look at some other things as well to get a well-rounded audit. We look at the entity and its environment. We look at if you're in compliance with laws and regulations. We look at the disclosures in the financials, not just the numbers, but the words as well. Making sure accounting principles used are appropriate. We look at all the significant estimates, and we look at the going concern basis of accounting. So what that means is we assess whether the town is doing well, is able to sustain itself into the future. So from a fiscal perspective. Page 11 talks about the reliance on controls. So there's 3 different ways to do an audit in general. There's a high reliance on controls, a moderate, and then a low reliance. So in a situation where we're doing a high control audit, that would mean that we focus mainly or purely on the controls in the organization, and we do a lot of testing around the specific controls, and then you don't go down to the underlying invoices. At that point, you're saying we're comfortable that the controls are so strong that we don't even have to look at the invoice that's underneath that. Moderate is somewhere in between, and then the low end is saying we look at the key controls, so we always have to do that, but then we like to go right to the invoice. So, if there was a truck purchased, we don't just assume it was good because the control is there. We go right down and look at the bill of sale to make sure that that truck was actually purchased. So at MNP, we typically do that low reliance on controls. We think it's a more accurate way to audit. So that's the same approach as last year. And then on page 12, the limitations, just stating that we don't provide absolute assurance. We have that materiality level, and we can't, if there's fraud happening or if there's collusion or stuff like that, there's some things that it wouldn't necessarily pick up. And we do everything on a test basis. So we're very comfortable in the statistics around how many samples we're choosing and things like that, but any audit is not an absolute guarantee. And then the last page is page 14, which is our independence. We do have to make sure that we're independent as an auditor. You can't have, an audit where, say, a partner or some relative is on council or something like that. So we do our independence checks, and everything came across good. So we are still independent and able to complete the audit. The only other thing included on here is the actual engagement letter. It's attached for your review if you'd like to. It's our standard engagement letter that gets signed each year by management. So all in all, pretty basic audit service plan this year. Nothing too exciting, which I think from a council perspective, that's good news. There's no big standard changes or all this, the industry is changing different rules and things. It's pretty status quo this year, which is kind of nice. When there's a lot of changes normally happening, quiet accounting standards are good. With that, I'll turn it over for any questions you might have.
Anybody have anything for Ben? Nothing on the general side. Benji, just give us a minute here to go into closed session so we can have that
Sure.
that discussion, and then we'll go from there. So I'll look for a motion from council for closed.
I can make that motion, move it closed.
Councillor Cosby, thank you. Call that question. All in favor? And that's carried. I'll just ask everybody to give us 5 minutes with the auditors.
Are we off?